If I told you that 80% of young men today have erectile dysfunction before the age of 30, you wouldn't believe me. You'd say something along the lines of, well, Michael, we're the most sexually liberated generation in history. Wrong. You're the most sexually sedated generation in history. You're walking around with a supercomputer in your pocket that gives you access to more naked women than Genghis Khan saw in his entire lifetime. And your brain thinks that you're the emperor of the world. But in reality, you're alone in a dark room with your pants down, hijacking your own dopamine system until you're clinically incapable of loving a real human being. My name is Michael. I'm a psychologist in training, a sober dad, and a man who had to claw his way out of the pit of digital lust. Today we're talking about the Coolidge Effect. We're going to talk about spiritual cannibalism, and we're going to talk about why the Bible compares your porn habit to digging a grave with your own teeth. Buckle up. This one's going to hurt. Welcome to the show where we break down the mental health stigma, navigate sobriety with humor, and prove that it's okay to laugh while you heal. Let's get real, let's get honest, and maybe a little weird. Growth is messy, but you don't have to do it alone. This is Sober Psychology. All right, let's start with the cycle. Dr. Patrick Carnes is the godfather of sex addiction therapy. He mapped out the addiction cycle that every single one of you porn users goes through. And I know you go through it because I went through it for 15 years. Phase 1 is going to be the preoccupation. This is going to be considered the trance. You aren't watching porn yet, but your brain is already checked out. You're at the dinner table with your wife, but you're thinking about when you can be home alone. You're chemically already high. And then you've got number 2, which is the ritualization. This is going to be the hunt. You check the door, you open the incognito tab, you have your specific search terms. This hunt releases more dopamine than the orgasm itself. Then we move on to the acting out phase. This is the binge. This is where the trance significantly deepens. You lose time. You're pretty much pressing the lever at this point. And then we go to the despair. This is the crash. The browser closes, the post-nut clarity hits, and you feel like the smallest, dirtiest thing on the planet. You swear, I'm never gonna do this again. I swear, okay? But here's the kicker. That shame, that despair phase, that's actually fuel for the next cycle. Shame is a stressor. And how do you cope with the stress? You numb out. So the shame leads right back into the preoccupation. You aren't addicted to sex. You're addicted to the cycle of medicating your own self-hatred. Now, let's talk some science, baby. Why can't you just look at one picture and be happy? Why do you need 50 tabs open? Why do you need the harder, the weirder, the faster? It's called the Coolidge Effect. Biologists put a male rat in a cage with a female rat who was in heat. They end up mating. Eventually, the male rat is going to get tired. He's done. He's cooked. He has a refractory period. Even if the female rat nudges him, he continues to sleep. But if you put a new female into the cage, oh well then boom, baby, he's back. Instant energy. He mates again. When he gets tired, you drop in a third female. He goes again. He's gonna do this until he almost dies of exhaustion. Your brain is the rat. Dopamine is not the molecule of pleasure. It's the molecule of novelty. Pornography is a supernormal stimulus. It hijacks your evolutionary drive. A tribal man might see 5 naked women in his entire life. You're gonna see 500 in 5 minutes. Your brain thinks that you hit the genetic lottery. But here's the cost of all of this. Desensitization. You're frying your dopamine receptors. This is called the delta phos-B accumulation. This is why you escalate. Vanilla porn doesn't work anymore. Now you need violence. Now you need incest themes. Now you need things that actually disgust your moral compass, but they're the only things that are going to wake up the dead nervous system. You're chasing the new because you've killed your ability to feel the now. We talked about the rat. Now let's talk about the bird. This comes from Nobel Prize winning researcher Nico Timbergen, I believe is how you pronounce it. He studied animal behavior and discovered something terrifying called supernormal stimuli. He found a bird, which I believe the name of the bird is the oyster catcher, pretty badass name, that lays small speckled eggs. Tinderberg built a fake egg. It was massive. It was bright neon orange with giant black polka dots. We're gonna pretend that's what this is. It didn't look like a real egg. It looked like a cartoon. But when he put it next to the real egg, the mother bird ignored her own babies and tried to sit on the giant plastic egg. So she would fall off all the time because it was way too big. But she kept trying. She abandoned her real genetic future for a piece of painted plaster. Why? It's because her brain was wired to respond to big plus speckled. The fake egg was bigger and more speckled. It had more attraction to it. It hijacked her instinct. Porn is the neon egg. Real women have flaws. They have stretch marks. They have moods. They aren't always ready. Porn stars are airbrushed. They're surgically enhanced and they perform acts that defy physics. They're considered supernormal. They're hypersexualized caricatures. And just like the bird, you're ignoring the real thing, the real relationship, the real intimacy, just to be able to sit on the plastic egg. You're starving to death trying to mate with a simulation. Your brain isn't broken. It's working too well. It's doing exactly what it's evolved to do, which is chase the strongest signal. But in the modern world, the strongest signal in this case is a lie. I hear guys say all the time, I just need more willpower, I just need to try harder. Let me explain why trying harder is physiologically impossible for you right now. We're going to talk about hypofrontality. Your brain has two main drivers. Number one is the prefrontal cortex, or the PFC. This is going to be the CEO. Logic, morality, consequences, future planning. This is the rider, if you will. And then the second part of this is going to be the midbrain. This is the limbic system. This is the animal. Survival, sex, hunger, dopamine. This is going to be considered the horse. In a normal brain, the rider controls the horse. But in an addicted brain, blood flow is literally shunted away from the PFC, prefrontal cortex, and towards the midbrain. We call this hyperfrontality, which is low frontal activity. Your CEO is asleep at the wheel. The horse is running the show. When the urge hits, your IQ literally drops. You become transiently cognitively impaired. You aren't choosing to watch porn, you're reacting. You're a zombie. This is why you can promise God at 8 a.m. that you won't do it, and then by 10 p.m., you're doing it again. It's not because you're a liar, it's because the part of your brain that made the promise is completely offline at this point. You cannot willpower your way out of this any more than you could willpower a broken leg to heal. You gotta have a cast. You need external structure, software, accountability to do the job that your prefrontal cortex can't do yet. Let's talk about your penis. I get emails from guys 22, 25 years old who are absolutely terrified because they finally got a girl into bed and absolutely nothing happened. It's called PIDE. This is Porn-Induced Erectile Dysfunction. It's not a blood flow problem, it's a brain problem. You've trained your brain that sex equals pixelated image plus hand plus high-speed clicking. Real sex is slow. Real sex is awkward. Real sex involves a real person with a real smell and a personality and needs. Your brain looks at a real woman and says, this isn't the stimulus I trained for. You're visually overstimulated and physically undersensitive. You have death grip syndrome. Think about the irony. You watch porn to feel like a man, right? To feel virile, but the act of watching it is literally castrating you. It's making you impotent. You're trading your actual manhood for a digital hallucination. If that isn't a curse, I don't know what is. We have to talk about the shame, because I know what some of you are watching, and I know that you're terrified that someone's gonna find out. You started with the vanilla stuff, lingerie, swimsuits maybe, and then that got boring, so you moved on to hardcore, and then that got boring, and now you're watching violence, you're watching incest scenarios, you're watching things that don't even match your sexual orientation, and you think, oh my God, I'm a monster, I'm a pervert, this is who I really am. No, you aren't a monster. You're a junkie. This is called tolerance. If a heroin addict takes the same dose every single day, eventually they feel nothing. In order to get high, they have to take a dose that would kill a normal person. Dopamine works in the same way. Your brain is so numb, so desensitized by vanilla that it requires a shock in order to feel anything. It needs fear, it needs disgust, it needs taboo. The shock value creates a spike in adrenaline, which potentiates the dopamine. You don't actually want to do those things in real life. If that scenario happened in front of you in your living room, you'd probably vomit. But on the screen, it's the only thing that wakes up your dead nervous system. Stop shaming yourself for the content. The content is just a symptom of the tolerance. Heal the brain, and the fetish disappears. I want to talk about why you do it. You say it's because you're horny. That's bullcrap. If you were just horny, you'd be satisfied with your imagination or your partner. You use porn because you have an intimacy disorder. Dr. Doug Weiss calls this intimacy anorexia. You're starving yourself of real connection because real connection is utterly terrifying. I get it. Think of intimacy broken down as into me, see. To be intimate, I have got to somehow or another let you see me, all of me, my fears, my shame, my weaknesses. And if I let you see me, you might reject me. That's the core fear of every man, some level of rejection. Porn is safe. The women on the screen never ask you how your day was. She never asks why you didn't get the promotion. She never judges your body. She demands nothing from you except your gaze. It's a one-way relationship. You get to take without ever giving. You get to feel powerful without being vulnerable. It's the coward's way out of love. You're choosing a harem of slaves because you're too afraid to be a partner to a queen. I need to talk to the married men, especially the Christian men. You love your wife. You respect her. She's the mother of your children. She's a saint, and you can't get turned on by her. But you can get turned on by a pixelated stranger doing degrading things in 3 seconds flat. Why? Are you broken? No, you're not. You're suffering from the Madonna-Whore Complex. Sigmund Freud identified this over 100 years ago. He said, where such men love, they have no desire, and where they desire, they cannot love. Here's the trap. You've been trained by purity culture and by porn that sex equals dirty. Porn is degrading. It involves name calling and choking and spitting and aggression. It is nasty, but your wife is clean. She's holy. She's mom. Your brain cannot compute doing dirty things to a clean woman. It feels like defiling a church. So you unconsciously desexualize your wife in order to protect her purity. You put her on a pedestal. That's the Madonna. And you take your sexual needs to the gutter. That's the whore. This splits your soul in half. You have a wife for safety and a harem for adventure. And your wife feels it. She feels your hesitation. She feels like a roommate. And she wonders, why doesn't he look at me like that? And you can't tell her it's because I respect you too much to look at you like a piece of meat. This is a lie from the pit of hell, brothers, let me tell you. The Bible destroys this dichotomy. Read Song of Solomon. It isn't polite. It isn't vanilla. It's wild, passionate, sweat-drenched pursuit between a husband and a wife. God invented the chemistry. God also invented the dopamine. You have to learn sexual integration. You have to realize that you can ravish your wife and respect her at the same time. In fact, true passion requires safety. You don't need to degrade a woman in order to desire her. You need to know her. You need to bring the wildness out of the gutter and bring it into the marriage bed where it belongs. Stop treating your wife like a porcelain doll. She wants a husband, not a fan. Let's go biblical. The world says that porn is harmless fun. The Bible calls it lust. Jesus said that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. That's Matthew 5:28. Why is he so harsh? Is he just a prude? No, he's protecting the architecture of the soul. There's a difference between love and lust. Love says, I see you, I want to give to you, you are a subject. Lust says, I see parts of you, I want to take from you, you are an object. When you watch porn, you're engaging in spiritual cannibalism. You're consuming a human being. You're eating their dignity in order to feed your hunger. You strip away their soul, their name, their childhood, their dreams, and you reduce them to some type of body part. You turn an image bearer of God into a piece of meat. And here's the crazy part. You become what you worship. If you worship objects, you become an object. You start to feel hollow. You start to feel like you're just a piece of meat. This is why porn users have such high rates of depression. You're degrading humanity, and that includes your own. Psalms 101:3 says, I will set no wicked thing before my eyes. The eye gate is the entrance to the soul. If you fill the temple with garbage, don't be surprised when the altar smells like rot. Now I'm gonna make you mad. Good. We need to talk about your wife or your girlfriend. You might tell yourself what she doesn't know won't hurt her. It's a victimless crime. Let me introduce you to a concept called betrayal trauma. When a woman finds out, and she will find out, it isn't just hurt feelings. It's literally PTSD. Her reality shatters. She looks back in the last 10 years and she asks, was any of this real? When he said I was beautiful, was he thinking of her? When we were in bed, was he replaying that video in his head? You have stolen her history and you have gaslit her entire life. And physically, her body reacts like she was assaulted. Panic attacks, insomnia, hypervigilance. She checks your phone not because she's controlling, but because she's terrified. She's looking for the tiger in the bushes, and you're the freaking tiger. Every time you click, you're making a deposit in the bank account of her trauma. You're paying for your orgasm with her sanity. Is it worth it? Is 5 seconds of dopamine worth destroying the woman who bore your children? If you say yes, then you aren't just an addict. You're a narcissist and a piece of shit. I said I was a sober dad, so let's talk about that. If you have a daughter or if you want to have one, listen to me. Psychology tells us that daughters often marry men who resemble their fathers, not physically, but emotionally. They ultimately imprint on the way that you love them. If you're a porn addict, you're emotionally unavailable. You're objectifying women. You're hiding. You're a coward. You're teaching your daughter that love equals distance. You're teaching her that men are safe on the surface but dangerous underneath. Do you want her to marry a man like you? Do you want her to marry a man who smiles at her at dinner but then goes into the bathroom and lusts after 50 other women on his phone? Do you want her to feel the betrayal trauma that your wife feels? Because if you don't break the cycle, you're training her to tolerate it. You're setting the bar for her future husband at 0. Every time you click, you're voting for her future heartbreak. Be the man that you want her to marry right now. So here's the real question. Why don't you stop? You probably will say something like, I've tried, Michael, I just can't. I'm going to give you 2 reasons why you can't stop. First is the sunk cost fallacy. You've invested so much time, years of your life into this habit. You've probably curated a collection. You've got gigabytes of special content. To quit means ultimately admitting that you wasted all of that time. It means deleting the collection. It feels like burning money. But you have to realize the time is already gone. You can't get it back by wasting more of it. And then the second part of this is the drama triangle. We discussed this a few episodes back, but it also applies to this as well. In your addiction, you play 3 roles. You've got the victim, which says, I'm lonely, my wife doesn't understand me, I deserve some level of a release. And then you've got the rescuer. The porn acts as the rescuer in this scenario. It soothes you, it saves you from the pain. And then you have the persecutor. When you finish, you become the persecutor. You beat yourself up, you piece of filth. This shame cycle is gonna keep the triangle spinning. You've got to step off the triangle. You've got to stop being the victim of your own urges in order to start being the owner of your own actions. Okay, enough. How do we fix this? How do we fix it? We need a hard reset. We're gonna call this the reboot. Number 1, starve the beast. You cannot taper off of porn. You need 90 days of 0 artificial stimulation. Your brain needs to resensitize. You need to let the delta phos B fade. This is gonna be hell. You're gonna have withdrawal. You're gonna have mood swings. You're gonna have this flatline effect, which is basically 0 libido. That's good. That means that the mind and body are healing. Number 2, kill the secrecy. Addiction grows in the dark. It dies in the light. You need software like Covenant Eyes. I'll put that link down below. But software isn't enough. You need accountability. You need brotherhood. You need people that are going to hold you up. You need another brother in your life, someone that you could really trust, and even someone who you just know is going to hold you accountable. You need to look that man in the eye and you need to say, I looked at porn on Tuesday. The moment that you say it, the shame loses its power. And then third, you've got to learn to rehumanize. You need to practice seeing women as God's daughters. You need to practice seeing them as people again. When you're at the grocery store, look at their faces, not their bodies. Wonder about their lives. Does she have any kids? Is she happy? Force your brain to acknowledge the soul, not just the skin. When I was struggling with this after I got sober, you're in rehab. An all dudes rehab. So of course, every woman you look at, it's a struggle not to look lustfully. But if you get into this mindset of just having a simple catchphrase, it helped me out a lot, but I would say, oh, that's God's daughter. That's how I would initially look at a woman. It recalibrates my system to see them for what they are, for what God created them to be, not just a piece of meat for me to do whatever I want with. I want to talk to the guy who thinks he's too far gone, to the guy who thinks that he's ruined his brain forever, the guy who thinks that God is disgusted with him and will never forgive him. The brain is plastic. It can heal. I've seen men who were addicted for 20 years get sober, restore their marriages, and have the best sex of their lives. God is in the business of resurrection. He breathes life into dry bones, but you've got to roll away the stone. You've got to bring the rot. Stop consuming the nonsense. There is a feast waiting for you, but you've got to wash your hands first. I'm Michael. This is Sober Psychology. Keep your head up, keep your heart open, go help somebody. Love you guys.